Remind members about switching off your mobile phone, declaring your obligation. Sorry, declaring interest, switching your tablet to mute. I haven't done that. Go.
Chair.
Yes.
At the outset of the meeting, I want to do something, which is to express support for you as chair.
Thank you.
What I want to do is, I just want to say that in the last few days, it's in the public domain that you have been, our chairperson has been subject to racial abuse online, and I want to express our support and solidarity for you at this time. And I want to record that you, as chair of this committee, have always acted impartially, with great fairness, and given equality to all members. And we respect you in the chair of this committee. And I just want to say that you have the absolute right to go about your business as an elected representative, free from any type of abuse or racial harassment. And I think it would be appropriate for this statutory committee, which you chair, the Committee for the Environment, to record a unified voice in support of you at this time.
Thank you very much. I'm really touched. Really appreciate that, members. Thank you.
Chair,
sorry, no, Peter.
No, Chair, I mean, I suppose just like to associate myself with remarks. I was going to say I thought that was maybe the longest speech Barry's given at the DOE committee, for which in certain regards we should all be thankful. But certainly, I mean, I think that any attack on any public representative, and I think particularly where it's disgraceful, where people have engaged in racism in relation to that, is to be utterly condemned. I think all of us would stand in solidarity on that issue. It's completely sort of wrong to do so. So I think the committee would be united.
Thank you.
Chair, just on behalf of the SDLP, I want to join with Barry and Peter and other colleagues round the table in condemning the vicious abuse that you have received, and most unfair. And I concur completely with what Peter and Barry have said. You've been outstanding in terms of your fairness and given considerable leadership to this committee, and I just want to support the remarks that have been made.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You're all going to make me cry. Cal.
Chair, I would also like to concur with the comments of my colleague. I mean, he phoned me last night and said that he would like to bring this forward. I think you have treated us very fairly in this committee, and I think it is unfair, some of the comments, and they're not justified. But I'd just like to share in Barry's comments and all the members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have received lots and lots of messages of good wishes, of support. And I'm really just feel very privileged to be in this position. Really representing the Assembly, and all I want is to make Northern Ireland a better place. I love this place. It is my home. I chose to live here, and that's my mission, really. Just, I know my 2 children have gone and not wanting to come back, but I want to really make this place better for this generation and for generations to come. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chair, could I just say, Mr. Weir has very adequately articulated our views on this matter, and we are not one on this issue, as he has stated.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks very much.
I can't guarantee to agree with you on a whole lot of things.
No, I know that. It's only fair. Yes, thank you.
From here on in, it changes.
I might be around.
Honeymoon is over.
Thank you. Right, today's business agreement of committee report on the local government bill, departmental briefing on the synopsis of responses to the consultation on the HGV road user levy. Apologies? No? None? Members aware of any other apologies? Any other apologies? No? Okay. Chairperson's business. NIREC has written to us and requests an opportunity to meet with me in relation to the wind energy inquiry. Members content for me to meet? The
only issue have we, but I mean, maybe particularly if you meet the individual capacity, do we sort of have generally any procedure where we've made a call for evidence with groups that are going to be submitting? I'm just careful that there are sensitivities around this issue on both sides on it. and if the chair was seen, if you like, almost to be aiding one particular submission or whatever. That's my only concern, and I think it's in the capacity as chair. I mean, have we had a sort of a normal sort of behaviour? I mean, if the question is, generally speaking, the chair has been, or on behalf of the committee, they've been happy to meet any group who've asked for it ahead of a submission, there's no problem. And I'm just conscious of the fact that I suspect that there may be elements of paranoia will creep into anything as regards wind as is. So I think we've just got to be a wee bit careful just what way we handle.
Sure. How do members feel about it? I mean, the deadline is not going to finish until end of this month. So next, on the 28th of February, next week. So they certainly can, I suppose, still be looking into their response, how they want to. Yeah, they have made a submission already. Okay. Cahill?
No, Chair, I would share in Peter's comments. I mean, I don't mind you meeting as chair of the committee, but it's the impression that you may create. If it's a listening brief to bring stuff back to the committee, that's grand. I mean, because they've asked on a number of occasions. But, just as long as we know what grounds you're meeting them on and what the information is going to be carried back in terms of chairperson or formulating an opinion on.
Yeah. We can call for evidence, invite groups to come after we receive all the submission.
Yes.
Shall we leave it until then?
Maybe best.
Would that be better, members? Then they can come and make presentation to the whole committee rather than meet with me. And obviously meeting with me always is open to members to join me at the meeting with any group. So if we ask them, wait until after the submission, after the deadline for submissions, and then we gather maybe a number of organisations and ask them to come and make presentation to us. Okay, thank you. Good point, Peter. Then, yeah. The next thing is a tabled item. We received correspondence from the Rural Community Transport Partnership and invite me to meet with them on the 25th of February. And it's at page 133. Is that right? In your table packed. So, members, are you content? I think it is to do with
It's a small bus permit.
small bus permits. Yeah. Okay. So, members content? I think they're meeting with a number of parties as well.
Yes,
They're
they
in
indicate that they
instalment.
have got a room for the entire day, and they're going to meet with parties as well.
Okay.
And they've asked for an opportunity to meet with you.
With the chair.
Chair, are we getting a brief? Are we getting an update from the department and where we're at with this? Or
It's been requested, but it'll be in April.
that's in relation to 10B?
In
Permit
relation
stuff
to
and all
the
that.
bus operator
Okay.
license, it'll be in April.
Okay, in April? Okay, I know there's an event next. I think there's an event next week, or there's invitation to parties next week to talk to people in relation to this.
I think
Is that the same one?
Same
That's the
one.
same one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, members content for me to meet with them? Okay. Yeah. Then, just also remind to let members know there will be training in the use of Microsoft OneNote provided to members, secretariat staff, and for members, secretariat staff, and party staff. I can't talk this morning. Tongue-tied this morning. OneNote is a software package from Microsoft which can be used for note taking and collecting, organising and sharing information. Training will be available on a couple of dates, members. Wednesday, the 26th of February in the Visitors Restaurant, or Thursday, the 13th of March in room 115. And sessions will be held every half hour from 12 noon to 2 p.m. Certainly would encourage members and your staff to get to the training. Also, IT has requested if we could send an electronic meeting pack to this software, to a software developer, for them to see how they can improve the whole system. So, members content? We just picked one. I think Sheila has picked kind of wants a
wanted
big
a
one.
large pack,
A large
so
pack,
that
yeah.
I think the developers would have a challenge on their hands. And they had suggested our pack for the 12th of September, which had quite a range of different items of business. They thought that would be a suitable pack. but because it's going outside the Assembly and the information isn't normally in the public domain, in the interests of data protection, we have to get formal permission from the committee. This pack is sent out to the developer to work on.
And members have no problem with that? Yep. Draft minutes. Members, are you content to agree the minutes? Okay. Also tabled are copies of minutes from the meetings on the 13th and the 18th of February. Okay. Members content to agree the minutes? Okay. Matters arising at page 19. There's a departmental reply regarding taxi enforcement. At the meeting on the 6th of February 2014, departmental officials agreed to provide further information on the number of taxi operators who have had their licence withdrawn since the introduction of taxi operator licensing. Officials also agreed to provide a breakdown of operations conducted and enforcement action taken over the last 2 years. One operator's licence has been revoked and 10 are in the process of being referred to the agency's regulation team for consideration as a result of compliance or enforcement activities. Members have also been provided with a breakdown of checks conducted and enforcement action and a breakdown of fixed penalty notices issued by offence. So, members, that's at page 19. Are you content to note, or any comments? Yeah, Peter. Yeah.
Chair, I mean, the information is useful in as far as it goes. I suppose it's 3 comments, just though. I think it would be helpful if, I don't know if there's maybe they can provide us further breakdown from a geographical point of view, because obviously one of the problems we've been getting is a concern consistently raised, and it's probably where, I don't know, the figures are maybe half of all taxi activity tends to take place in Belfast. To what extent is there a focus in on Belfast is one issue. Secondly, I think the concern that ultimately one operator licence, and I appreciate these things also presumably will be on the basis of what is there with the courts, has been withdrawn, or sorry, has been, seems a very small figure, to be honest on it. And the third issue, I suppose, I would like to probe with them with is to what extent then is, in terms of inspections, is this sort of working alongside the police? Because, I mean, I've heard recently, I suppose, some horror stories of what is happening in terms of illegal activity in a range of taxi depots at times. Now, again, it's only probably a small minority, but in terms of issues around sort of gambling, sort of machines that shouldn't really be there, and a whole range of other activities of that nature. Some, you know, whether it's pure criminality or whatever, various criminal offences. Yet, therefore, it's very then difficult to tally with a lot of stories from reasonably reputable sources of a lot of stuff happening, particularly in some depots in Belfast, with then a situation which there's only been one operator licence. And I appreciate a number of the things that were raised with me in terms of that would be issues, to be fair, which would fall outside directly the taxi enforcement side. So, you know, if there is a depot that is being used effectively as a sort of a means for illegal alcohol to be purchased, or act as a sort of a courier point from that point of view, to some extent, some of those things may well fall outside directly taxi enforcement. But I'd be interested to see what degree of coordination happens with that. I mean, I've also, perhaps on a slightly separate point, heard a little bit of concerns over the rigidity at times of some of the inspections, that there's not a sort of a flexibility to at least try and work with businesses in terms of some of their needs on that side of it as well. There's good sides and bad sides to that. So maybe if we could go back to the department just on those couple of issues and see if we can get a bit more clarity.
Okay. I'm certainly quite surprised to see, in terms of fixed penalty tickets, the number for no PSV licences are really quite high, 120. You know, taxis.
And what happens in an incident like that? Is that taxi automatically off the road then?
Yeah, I think so. So we can ask for that, you know. And, do they have to stop until they get the licence? But that's pretty serious without PSV licence. And then, go out driving. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, so what, just to get clear, the fixed penalty issues where no PSV licences, that vehicle is automatically off the road, is that right?
We don't know. We need to check. Yeah. What actions do they take? Yeah. Do they? So, any other issues, members, on this? Okay. The next item, also in relation also to taxis, members. Is that in the tabled pack?
It is,
Tabled. Just to inform us. There's a FOI letter to inform us. There's a request in relation to a meeting, just wanting notes, is that right, of a meeting, informal meeting we had with the taxi drivers. So, members, you content? This is just a letter
with the department.
With the department. Okay. Oh, this is requested from taxi drivers. Okay. They have requested the notes of a meeting we've had with departmental officials in relation to taxis.
The one immediately before Christmas, yes.
Right. Okay. Then next item is item number 5 at page 28, consultation on amending the pollution prevention and control industrial emissions regulations, NI 2013. The regulation is on statutory rule to transpose Article 14, Section 5 to 9 of the Energy Efficiency Directive, the objective of which is to promote efficiency in heating and cooling. As the transposition deadline for the directive is on the 5th of June 2014, the consultation period would be for 6 weeks. Members, are you content to request a copy of the synopsis of responses?
Great.
Okay. Next item is at page 31, consultation on draft planning hazardous substances amendment regulations NI 2014. The synopsis of responses. There were 2 substantive responses which acknowledge respondents' the need for the amendment, and no objections were raised. The Department states it will continue with this policy development in conjunction with the other UK jurisdictions and will inform the committee of the outcome prior to making the new statutory rule. Members, are you content for the Department to proceed with making the policy?
Yep.
Okay. Then next item, item 7, is an SL1, the planning fees amendment regulations NI at page 36. The proposed rule will increase planning fees by 1.3%, deemed to be the rate of inflation. Introduce new fees for applications by non-profit organisations in respect of community facilities and sports grounds. Address a range of areas of re-applications and mixed-use applications. It is proposed that the rule will be subject to the negative resolution procedure and will come into operation on 24th of March 2014. Sonia, I think we've looked at all these issues before. Departmental officials certainly had come to talk to us. I think that's quite welcomed by members previously. I'm sure it's still full recovery cost for planning fees. I'm quite sure of that. So yeah. Although 1.3% seems quite low to me, but from an inflation, yeah.
I think it is a bit more, I think.
Can we just double?
They say quite clearly that this is the measure used by Treasury.
Okay.
I'm just conscious of it's maybe dancing a bit in the head in the pin in that regard. I thought it was closer to 2 because I know whenever maybe at the exact point at which it was proposed, that was the thing. But I noticed recently because there was some newspaper coverage and about the general rate rises in councils, and I think they mentioned something like, say, 3 out of the 26 had they called it above inflation, and those tend to be the ones that were pitched just over, around about 2 or just over.
Yeah.
So I suspect if it's taken purely as of today, it's maybe slightly closer to 2 than it is to 1.3, but you know, if you're arguing over whether 0.5% one way or the other, it's not going to make an enormous difference one way or the other.
Sure, sure. Okay, members content with that? Yeah, yeah. Okay. So you're content for the department to proceed with making the route? Okay. Thank you. Next item, item 8, is another SL1. That's the Motor Vehicles Taxi Drivers Licences Amendment Regulations NI Driving Licence Standards, Vision and Epilepsy. The proposed statutory rule will amend the Motor Vehicles Taxi Drivers Licences Regulations to implement changes to driving licence medical standards in relation to vision and epilepsy. It will extend to taxi drivers the same medical standards applied to bus and lorry drivers. Taxi drivers will need a certificate of vision completed by a doctor, optician or optometrist as part of the application and renewal process for Group 2 licences. There are no additional requirements for taxi drivers over and above those already introduced for Group 1 vehicles in relation to epilepsy. It's proposed that the rule will be subject to the negative resolution procedure and will come into operation in May 2014. Members, are you content for the department to proceed with making the rule? Okay, just make
say, yeah,
all of us safer.
No, I think it seems a fairly degree of a no-brainer in that regard, and I think no one could argue with that. I think that's all fair enough. I mean, I suppose just maybe worthwhile just pointing out at this stage that SL1, no problem. I would like to see a wee bit more clarity and movement from the department on some of the wider, the wider tax issue we have raised with them, and to some extent there has been a lack of substance in what they're going to really do to solve those bits. But that's, I suppose, separate to this point, but I just want to put that on the record.
Yeah. Cahill?
Yeah, Chair, no, I'd agree with that. I mean, we just need to now be careful. I know that there's going to come a series of SL1s coming forward on this taxis. We met as a committee to try and address a certain issue. It hasn't come forward. Now, obviously this is in relation to vision and epilepsy, which is grand. I would agree with Peter that any others that's going to come forward, we need to see the department's response to the issue we raised before Christmas in relation to single tier issues, before any other issues come forward in this committee. I want to put that on record. I know there's a number of stages that's going to come forward over the next couple of months, but we want the issue in relation to the Belfast issue resolved before anything else comes before this committee. Okay.
I think the officials last time said they've passed it on to the Minister for his decision. So, yeah, well, we can chase that. We'll chase, yeah.
Well, Chair, the message coming out, well, from my point of view and on behalf of the party is, if this other SL1s is coming forward, or rules, we're going to have to put them on hold till this issue is dealt with, the initial issue is dealt with. So what I'm saying, there's no point in the department bringing forward more of these. We accept this in today, but I can imagine there's others in terms of relation to driving licence and everything else that's going to come forward. And, you know, well, yes, so, I mean, we need to see the other issue. I know that it's going to the Minister, but at some point I'd like to see a response from the Minister to see what he's going to do, because it seems to me then we're going to have to, it'll be a series of SL1s that's going to be torn down in committee or asked to advise.
We'll get in writing. Yes, Sheila just reminded, yes.
Minister said that he was not prepared to change the limit when he was here during his
Chair, I understand that. I mean, it's maybe just the fact, not so much criticising the complete lack of response. If this is going to get sorted, then there's got to be some sign of movement on it, and I think that's maybe the lack of movement that we're seeing in connection with it. But I think the point's been made on that sort of thing.
Okay, we moved on. Next item, draft statutory instrument, the CRC Energy Efficiency Amendment Order 2014, at page 52, members. This statutory instrument will amend existing legislation to ensure that the policy intention for the carbon reduction commitment energy efficiency scheme will be properly delivered across the UK. There were no responses due to consultation from Northern Ireland registered participants in the CRC scheme, but overall there has been a positive response to the proposals. On the 10th of March 2014, the Department intends to lay an amendment order before the Northern Ireland Assembly by negative resolution. The order will be simultaneously made in the Scottish Parliament, National Assembly of Wales and the Westminster Parliament. We did look at this previously on a number of occasions last year. It's a change now of the system, so I think there's very little we can do, and money is going to Treasury instead of staying in Northern Ireland. But I think it goes right across the whole of the UK. So, members, are you content to note? Yep. Okay, moved on. And then, members, then we now move to our draft report. You have there provided with a tabled copy of the final draft of the committee report on the bill at page 42 of your pack, members. So the suggested change from the meeting on the 18th of February has been made at page, what page is that? 45. Is that 45? Yep. Okay, members, you want to have a quick glance, or do you want me to just go through?
Just when you mentioned about there's the change at page 45, maybe you could highlight what the change is.
Change that.
Paragraph 4.
Paragraph 4 was the last sentence, Peter.
Just the last sentence.
The wording of it, including the lack of clarity around the call-in.
Okay.
Tom had suggested.
Okay.
Yes.
So just a lack of clarity around the criteria for the use of the calling procedure.
Right.
Any other changes? We no,
We didn't make any more.
Okay. Yeah, members, are you content? We just approve this en bloc?
Yeah.
Or you want me to go through chapter
Chair,
by chapter?
I'm happy, because we went through this in obviously in a fair amount of detail, so I'm happy to approve in block. Suppose just the one side follow-up issue. I know it's obviously it is. I apologise for missing it earlier from the previous occasion. Just on the issue, because the department, I think it said on the quotas graders reminder they were going to be looking at this type of thing. We're still in discussion. Just if we keep on pursuing that, because that may require an amendment. Now, I think the problem on it is, if it requires an amendment, it tends to be of a very technical nature on it. So I think the sooner at least we got some light out of the department, I think on that, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Members content that we agree with the report?
Indeed.
And we're going to send that to be printed for publication. Okay. When will that be on our website? Will be
About 10 days.
in about 10 days. Okay. Yeah.
And I need to do the
Just read the last bit.
Okay.
on the other
Yeah.
side
Yes.
as well.
Yes, members. Yes. So I'll do that. So I need to ask members to agree that they are content for the report to contain the relevant extracts from the minutes from today's meeting, as well as the minutes of evidence. Members will be agreeing to your inclusion in the report without prior sight of the documents. Members, are you content with that? Yep, thank you. Also, I need to put the following question to you, that the report be the 6th report of the Environment Committee to the Assembly. This is what, since when? 6th report?
Well, this Monday, I think.
Since this Monday? Oh, we've done quite a lot then, members, in 2 years.
Think of all those poor trees that have been cut down.
We don't publish a large number of them. No, really more on site that you. Yes, on a website that people can look at it, and the CD-ROM.
Yes, the CD-ROMs.
Yeah.
We don't get very many copies.
Yeah. No, that's not allowed to cut down all the trees from the Environment Committee. Come on, folks. Okay, members agree with that? Okay. Then the report will now be ordered to be printed and submitted to the Business Office as the committee's official report on the Local Government Bill Then ending the committee stage of the local government bill. Oof. We still don't know when the consideration stage is going to be. Yeah.
Don't worry about that, sir. Sorry, we just have to finish the
Yeah.
committee stage.
Yeah.
So just have to finish the committee stage.
As Chair already knows, it's not going to be the business. The next 2 weeks, he said it's not going to be during that period. But
Right, right. Okay, okay. Yep, yep. Then we moved on then to page 97, members. We have now departmental briefing on synopsis of responses to consultation on secondary legislation relating to the HGV Road User Levy Act 2013. The proposed legislation will introduce a specific time-based charge for using or keeping a heavy goods vehicle on the public roads in the UK. It aims to provide a fairer arrangement to equate UK hauliers who are subject to charges for the use of most other European roads with other EU hauliers who do not pay charges for the use of roads in the UK. Members have also been provided with a copy of a letter from the Secretary of State for Transport on the fairness and economic impact of the levy, and that's at page 111. We also have tabled the Minister's response to the Secretary of State's letter to the letter. So if we can, if I can welcome Alex Boy and Jeremy Logan, maybe to give us further information on the issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, as you know, we're here at the request of the committee to deal with the introduction of the HGV levy that's being introduced across the UK. As you know, it's a UK-wide taxation issue, so therefore it's an accepted matter. So in that regard, Northern Ireland is obviously following suit in terms of what GB wishes to introduce. There has been a number of correspondence recently, and I know the committee received a letter from the Minister for Transport outlining the background to the levy. I think I heard you also a very detailed letter. Yeah. I think that also went to the First and Deputy First Ministers. Was copied to them. And I think I also heard you say that our Minister had written also to the DFT Minister in support of concerns that have been raised by Minister Varadkar from the Republic of Ireland in relation to primarily roads that are to be exempted from the scheme, and asking that the DFT Minister look again, if you like, at the exemptions. As committee members will have seen and will know from previous correspondence, there are 2 sections of road that have been excluded, primarily along the border, totalling in the region of some 7 miles. Minister Varadkar previously and recently again has raised concerns about the A5 and has suggested that it should be exempted on the basis that the Irish Government are providing funding towards its upgrade. And I know in response, Minister Varadkar is actually meeting today with Minister Hammond in London, and I have no doubt will be pressing his case for that to be looked at again. And I believe that, based on comments that we've heard from officials in DFT, that if there is evidence produced to substantiate, and quantifiable evidence, obviously, to substantiate claims that this would be beneficial, there is a suggestion that Minister Hammond may be prepared in the future to look at further exemptions of the roads. But I suppose, as I've said already, the key issue here is that it is a UK-wide taxation matter, and really what we need to do in Northern Ireland is to introduce a number of changes to legislation to ensure that the levy can be operated effectively once it comes into operation on the 1st of April in Northern Ireland. I think the other key point I would stress is that it relates to very large HGV vehicles. It's not all commercial vehicles. It is those of either 12 tonne or over. So we're talking about very large articulated type vehicles, and I think it's, I think there was some concern that it was applying to perhaps van drivers, white van type drivers, and so on. But it's not. It's really the large HGVs.
They must be, quite heavy on our roads as well. They need to contribute to the repairs and of roads and maintenance of roads.
To it as well. Now, to be honest, that would be something the DRD officials probably will be better in terms from an engineering point of view. Would be best placed to comment on. But I think there's no doubt the heavier the vehicle on a road, the more damage potentially can be done.
Yes. And it's fairer to our business as well, to our hauliers, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the levy, obviously, this was a commitment that the coalition government made when coming to power, that it would introduce a levy, primarily to bring the UK into line with many other EU countries that operate levies or tolls, whatever way you wish to view it. And from that perspective, I think the other key point to make was that the changes were also to align vehicle excise duties in the UK with those that come within European regulations and legislation. So effectively, in terms of UK hauliers, they won't really be paying any additional marginally, to say the most, increase in their vehicle excise duty. So that is how, when they're applying for their vehicle excise duty, the levy will be factored in there. Payment for hauliers from outside the UK will be administered by a company who will be charged with the collection of the levy, and that will be done in a variety of ways, as you would probably expect, through online, through telephone, or there will be a number of locations that you can simply go in and pay the levy across a counter at, say, a petrol station or something like that.
Yeah. But then if you have exemptions, is it going to be confusing for people, driving through from here down south?
Road exemptions, yeah. I mean, it's these roads. I'm sure some members of the committee will probably know them well. They are in border areas. They do crisscross the border, and you will be travelling for a short period of time on a Northern Ireland road, and then you will be travelling on a road that falls within the jurisdiction of the Republic of Ireland. There's no doubt that that's complicated, but in many respects that's why they were exempted, because it would be potentially difficult to enforce along those sections of roads.
Sometimes I think you probably don't know whether you're in the north or in the south.
No, indeed.
Okay, members, any questions?
Okay,
Barry?
Chair, thank you. Chair, I'm going to take a strong stand on this one.
On Barry,
Hope you're all well apart from that. But on Sunday, I attended a meeting with hauliers. It lasted 3 hours, and it was in Letterkenny. And the case of Donegal hauliers is a particular case. For example, it is indeed, the Good Friday Agreement, the St Andrews Agreement, everybody knows it's both north-south and east-west in character. And even from a unionist perspective, unionists agree generally with where it's practical there should be cooperation. Now, at the meeting I attended at the weekend, this is a very, very serious issue, because particularly if you take the case of Donegal hauliers, who all of the time are coming to ports in the north, all of the time. There's only one way out of Donegal to join the rest of the south, and that's Ballyshannon Bridge. Right? Otherwise, you have to come into Tyrone, you have to come into Fermanagh, etc. And this particular EU law, this particular it doesn't fit the circumstances or requirements of business in the north of Ireland, I will suggest. It might suit other regions or other countries, but it doesn't fit the bill here as far as I'm...
It's
Is it a EU?
the
EU
EU
directive?
law in relation to the charging. There is has to be seen to be fair and equitable across the. I think that's what you're referring to
But
across
the
the
particular
UK.
circumstances that we're dealing with here, I mean, everybody knows this is an abnormal situation. Everybody knows that the lines of the border are, in many cases, not natural. And particularly from a Donegal perspective, I mean, I would ask the question: is this going to be bad for the economy of the north? The answer is yes. It's going to be bad for the economy of the north. But I have a duty to reflect the requirements, the issues as brought to me by hauliers from Donegal as well, and I'm going to do that. Obstacles to cross-border mobility. Government is involved in the business of removing obstacles to cross-border mobility in every single area, including finance, including business. And what this is doing is introducing, it's installing something that was never there, another obstacle to cross-border mobility on a small island where there are two jurisdictions. And I just wonder, politically I would be asking for support for seeking that this entire region, the north of Ireland, others will call it by a different name, that it be exempt in its totality, and for us to work together and politically to achieve that outcome, given the particular circumstances of the economy of this region. And I mean, it's going to be £10 every trip, or it's going to be £1,000 a year, and with rising fuel costs, etc., hauliers are going to be put out of business, and that's the message I'm hearing from them. And this coming Tuesday, I'm merely facilitating a visit to Stormont by a group of hauliers who are so affected by this. And through this committee, if I could ask each, party group leader to speak to me afterwards about their willingness or otherwise to meet briefly with the delegation to hear their concerns at first hand. But I would want this committee to explore whatever legislative tools are at our disposal, or political tools are at our disposal as a committee or as parties to oppose this legislation being introduced and applied.
I have Cahill there.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you very much for your presentation. And I know, Alec, you started off by saying it's an accepted model. Well, it's an unaccepted model in terms of some of the road hauliers. And my colleague here has articulated the views of the party very well. But, it's disappointing that, one, I want to ask you, in terms of, surely to God, seeing it was being devolved, we should have had some sort of warning or legislative consent motion in relation to this matter. I know that it's been dealt with over in England. There should have been an opportunity for us to have a say in it, because whilst we've had issues here in relation to hauliers itself, there are a number of single operators out there who this will certainly impact on. And the exemptions that we've said, I mean, it doesn't make any sense for people to travel from part of Donegal down to say that, I think there's one crossing maybe Tyrone from one area or in around Monaghan, and then one over in the Dundalk side where them two parallels meet to cross into the north and conduct business. It's just, there's no sense with it whatsoever. And just in terms of what engagement did the previous minister have in relation to try and address this issue? Because, and I just want to say this, Chair, because this comes up all the time. This case of us not having an opportunity or playing our part, be it through European directives or other, to have a say in it. To be fair, we leave it up to the departments and everything else, Minister. But in this situation, what negotiations or what discussions did the Minister have, and why did it not come to us in terms of having a say in one?
In relation to the previous Minister, Carl, I can deal with that first. Minister Atwood did actually write on a number of occasions to, I think at the time it was Mike Penning was the DFT Minister. In fact, he also met with him to articulate concerns, many of which have been raised here this morning about the impact of the levy and the issue of exempting roads. Again, at that stage, and as I said today, as a follow-up to that, Minister Farage also raised those concerns as far back as 2012, and I suspect we'll be raising them again today. So there was a considerable engagement between DFT and the Department, as it was then, for Transport in or Department of Transport in Dublin. So there has been a considerable engagement in that regard. In terms of it coming to the committee, to challenge or otherwise, as I said, our difficulty was that because this is a taxation, it was made clear to us that we have no locus in this, and that it was a coalition government decision to introduce, and therefore Northern Ireland had to comply with that. The consultation was issued and was circulated by DFT. I am aware DFT officials from London did, certainly they spoke to us, and I am also aware they went to Dublin and met with officials in the Department of Transport in Dublin to explain to them. So there was reasonable engagement, and there was discussion about the exemption of roads. And I think that's actually what resulted in the two particular sections, the 7 miles that I referred to. A5 was mentioned back in 2000, as far back as 2012 as well. And again, at that stage, DFT decided that they could not agree to that. And as I say, it's back on the agenda also. It's interesting. I mean, I know the point Barry was making about the impact on the economy. I know that this question came up when the Deputy Minister, Arlene Foster, was actually taking questions, and I am aware that she's actually asked for some work to be done, some research to be carried out in relation to the impact that this may have, particularly on SMEs, and particularly around the border area. She's actually instigated that with her own department and the Northern Ireland Centre for Economic Policy. So obviously that may help inform, a future discussion about the economic impact.
I mean, just a bit of. Obviously, some members may think here when the vehicles cross the board, they may turn a different colour or something, but that's not going to be the way of it. So just want to make that point.
Can we make it a amendment?
The main point for me is
about the north.
you've talked. I'm glad members mentioned the north there, places, etc. But the issue is that say in terms of the consultation process. I mean, because we're getting now that obviously the Road Haulage Association. There's questions now whether or not, say, I don't know where they were speaking in terms of all of the hauliers, because obviously the single operators out there, and they have not had a voice, a main voice in all of this here. And it is very unfair that their views and their contribution to the economy in relation to this hasn't been heard. And that's where I see the problem. I'm not saying there wasn't any consultation, no. But
certainly what I can say is the RHA in Northern Ireland and the FTA are both supportive of the introduction of the levy. I suppose in terms of what they see as levelling the playing field in relation to other EU countries that already have tolls and levies in place. The RHA in Ireland, the sister body, obviously, which represents hauliers there, take a slightly different view. Clearly, they have concerns about the impact of the levy on their business. So it depends who, what side of the border who you talk to, what stance you will get. I think it's encouraging that, as we understand it, DFT are prepared in the future to look at, as I say, any quantifiable evidence that would be presented that perhaps other roads may be exempted There is a willingness to consider. That doesn't suggest that will happen, but I think there is a willingness to consider future exemptions should that prove necessary.
But the issue here is that obviously your task is to go about implementing this piece of legislation in terms of the fees issue. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to introduce legislation, subordinate legislation in Northern Ireland to give effect to two specific elements of the levy, which, as you say, is in terms of changing weight bands to bring them into line with Europe, which will affect the vehicle excise duty, and also to provide for the fixed penalties for the enforcement of, and that's where DVA and Jeremy, my colleague here, will be dealing with that.
And that's to come in April.
Yeah, I mean, the point I would stress, I suppose, it's actually worth making the point that DFT, and you mentioned, the Chair mentioned the letter that has recently arrived. I mean, the levy will be introduced on the 1st of April. That is their intention. Whether we make the legislation in Northern Ireland or not, it still will happen. In terms of enforcement, I think DFT have made it clear that they would then look to PSNI to act as the enforcement body, the sole enforcement body. If that were to happen, because it's PSNI, they effectively would have to arrest hauliers and then bail them, and it would go to court. There's, so from a cost point of view, from anyone outside the jurisdiction, it would be a more costly exercise for them if that were to happen, I think. So the fixed penalties were seen as a way of ensuring that, well, if you haven't paid the levy, you pay the fixed penalty. You do have a right of appeal, clearly, and that would be open to anyone to do.
Well, clearly, in what you've said, obviously this hasn't been well thought out. I mean, hand it over to yourselves to deal with, whatever way you just need to deal with. That's one issue after what you said. It seems to me, hopefully it's only in April Fool, obviously said it firstly, to be honest with you, because I don't see it, but like I said, I'll go back to, I know that the people in the Ministry has responded in this matter. I have some concerns given the time frame. It's now really near the end of February, and we've only a number of weeks then for the Department to get measures in place to address these issues. So, I mean, I'm concerned with that. But I would like it to go back from this committee that there is serious concerns with this to single haulier operators. I mean, I know that some of the industry is happy, is content with it. There's no doubt about it. But I think it's well thought out, and I would like to see more exemptions. My colleague here has called for the whole of it. I'm not in disagreement with that there. But certainly from the party's point of view, share that view. Okay, Chair, yeah.
Right, Chair. Thanks very much for that. Can you tell me, if I own a haulage business in Northern Ireland, what effect will this have on me?
In terms of the levy, effectively none. The way the levy will work will be that for hauliers in Northern Ireland or in the UK as a whole, as part of this change, the way vehicle excise duty is charged is being altered to bring it into line with European legislation. Effectively, what that means is that we have been, our hauliers here, would have been paying, slightly more than the recommended levels in the EU. So by reducing that, it actually effectively is a cost-neutral impact on hauliers. So you will pay, if you were a haulier, you will pay your levy when you're renewing your vehicle excise duty. So you effectively then have paid the levy.
Sorry, does the vehicle excise levy come down?
Yes.
And then you pay a different levy for this, is that correct?
If you're not within the jurisdiction, you...
No, but first of all, if you're within the jurisdiction...
If you're within the jurisdiction, when you pay your vehicle excise duty, that includes the levy.
that will include
Yes.
the levy, okay.
The difference is obviously for those outside the jurisdiction. It's a totally different scenario. They will have to physically seek to pay the levy and whatever means they so choose, as I said earlier, through IT means or through going into petrol stations or telephone, or as the case may be.
Okay. And how do you follow up on those that don't pay?
Jeremy, do you want to?
Well, I think that would then pass to us as an enforcement agency, and it is envisaged that the Driver and Vehicle Agency would enforce the levy in Northern Ireland, similar to the Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency, formerly VOSA, in Britain. The two bits of legislation that relate to the fixed penalties and financial penalty deposits are really the main enforcement tools that we would envisage using where we encounter a vehicle at the roadside that has not paid the levy. DFT have invested in what they call the Foreign Operator Payment System. It is basically a database of information that includes all details of the vehicles and drivers and operators that have paid the levy. Where we encounter them, if they haven't paid the levy, they would be dealt with by, or it is proposed to be dealt with by way of a £300 fixed penalty or financial penalty deposit.
So it's mainly by roadside stopping, or?
It would be by roadside stopping. I mean, our approach in Northern Ireland is complicated by the land border. You'll appreciate that in Britain all the freight comes in via the ports, and through the shipping manifestos they can data match the vehicles that are on the ferries coming in that have or have not paid the levy and target enforcement action against those. VOSA or DVSA also have an infrastructure of ANPR cameras that they'll be using to utilise that information.
So they must pay before they come into the jurisdiction?
They must pay before they come into the jurisdiction.
So in other words, if you stop a vehicle at Strabane that's just crossed over from Lifford, then they will be causing an offence?
That's right.
Without having that paid? Okay. Sorry, where's the 7 miles exclusion?
It's two stretches of road, two small stretches. It's the A35, A37 and the A3. I think one's around Clonus, and I think the other's...
It's just near Crossmaglen, just west of Crossmaglen.
Yeah, Cullevel, right. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Okay. So, yeah, I can understand people coming from Europe over, and the ferry is so easy to find out, if they haven't, that they have to pay for the levy before they dock, is that right, before they come onto the land of Northern Ireland.
That's right.
But there's so many crossing points between us and down south. How do you monitor those?
Well, it's going to be very difficult to monitor, in which case we will be relying on spot checking vehicles to ensure that they have or have not paid the levy, and we will take appropriate action as we encounter the vehicles.
Okay. So how much is the levy? Can you remind me? I know I read it. Is it
the maximum charge for an annual levy is £1,000, but you can pay it daily, weekly, monthly, and I think the daily charge is a minimum of £170 to £10 per day.
Okay. It's like a toll. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I have a few others. Cal, we'll come back to you. Yeah.
I suppose if you look at the enforcement side of things and history of enforcement for, I suppose, the taxi side of things hasn't been great, so I'm not so sure. I suppose I'm happy to be proved wrong that enforcement will actually tackle what it is you want to do. If it's spot checks, and you did mention the I suppose more the technology side of things that hopefully will impact on that. I probably would have a different opinion than what has been expressed. I certainly know hauliers who drive regularly to Dublin, and actually see in the letter to the chair from was it Robert Goodwill, the £16.80 return, goals. So my attitude is sort of the opposite. Why should hauliers from the Republic of Ireland come to Northern Ireland not have to pay a similar type toll in that sense? So I think it's important that the ensuring that whether it's the spot checks or that side of things, it needs to be more rigid? And is there a additional number of enforcement officers going to be brought in to carry out this work, and how do you see that moving?
Yeah, I mean, we have engaged closely with the Department for Transport about the enforcement approach in Northern Ireland, and it's been accepted that it is going to present itself more challenges. To that end, DFT have agreed to fund the enforcement resources up until the end of 2015-16, and that will effectively be 3 full-time enforcement staff. They will not be dedicated to doing levy checks, if you will, but they'll be embedded into the goods team, the goods enforcement team, and then that will be planned operationally to ensure that a number of checks are carried out. Now, is
that 3 additional?
That will be 3 additional. It will not impact on the resource that we currently have on the goods enforcement teams. That's 3 staff dedicated for enforcement of the levy.
Sorry, how many is there currently? This obviously isn't a levy in place, so it's 3 on top of.
Well, I don't have the figures. It's somewhere in the region of about 15 staff we have in goods enforcement. So DFT have agreed to fund that. Because of the difficulties in the infrastructure we have, we don't have an automatic number plate recognition network similar to the Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency. It is something that we've agreed with the DFT that we would look at in 14-15 in the first year of the implementation of road charging, to see where we could place cameras on strategic corridors within Northern Ireland to ramp up the enforcement approach. And that is a project that we will be taking forward and looking at over the next 12 months to see where these may be located, and probably dealing with the majority of the foreign vehicles that are using the strategic corridors as opposed to smaller, more minor roads. So that is something that we are resourced, and from a project perspective we'll be looking at in the next financial year. From the 1st of April, assuming that we have the fixed penalties and the financial penalty deposits available to us, we will be carrying out additional checks on foreign vehicles to see whether they have or have not paid the levy, and then we will deal with that accordingly.
That really backs the question, really, is it worth doing it? You have to have, at the Capito to install the cameras and all the equipment, and then employing 3 staff from getting the levy. Yeah.
I suppose it goes back to the point that the decision has been taken, that it's being introduced, so
Yes.
Well, maybe the other point to make is that because we will be stopping more foreign vehicles, we will not be just looking at the vehicles from the perspective of whether they paid the levy. There will be other compliance issues that we'll consider as well from a point of view of roadworthiness and licence. Yeah. So it actually, over time, should improve the compliance of vehicles using Northern Ireland roads, which is a very good thing.
Okay, Ian, you finished? Yes. Yeah. Alban?
Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, there's another Ian here, is it? Sorry, there's another Ian to Ian's.
You're okay.
Pardon.
Go ahead, no, he's all right.
Sorry, Alban,
No, Ian first.
All right, well,
yes.
Most of the stuff that I wanted to say there has been covered anyway, enforcement and who was going to administer all of that, but it is then realistic to say that if the Southern Government wished there, that they could also do the same exercise in the south of the border, and then we have taxations everywhere. Surely a case has to be made here, for because of the situation here, that we need an exemption, from this madness, as I see it as, has been introduced in the first place. So maybe we should be in contact with the British government, to relay those fears and all those problems that we see here in this committee.
I mean, I think, Ian, as I said earlier, certainly I know the Irish Minister, Leo Varadkar, and indeed Alex Atwood, and indeed our current Minister, have expressed concerns about the need to look at exemptions of other roads. The difficulty, other options that were proposed in the past was that, for example, the whole of Northern Ireland should be removed from the levy, that wouldn't be possible to do, because that would be, taking one part of the UK out of the process, and DFT just couldn't and wouldn't countenance that. The other suggestion was that we exclude the Republic of Ireland from the levy. Under European legislation, that would not be legal, and we couldn't do that either. So, the situation we're presented with is really we have to introduce it, and as I've said, one of the reasons coming to the committee was to get your agreement to the making of the necessary legislation for the changing of the bandings in relation to the VED, and also to the introduction of the fixed penalties. If the committee doesn't countenance to do that, the DFT have made it clear that is proceeding, and they will look to the PSNI, as I say, to enforce it.
But I mean, Chair, we've heard of this in this committee already, about the pressure that hauliers are under and have been under there for quite a long period of time, and yet again now we're introducing a new tax system onto those people that are finding it pretty difficult at the present time.
Well, certainly Northern Ireland hauliers, as I've said, are supportive of the organisations, their representative organisations, FTA and RHA, have both said that they would support. I think, as I said earlier, also, however, you do get a different story when you talk to the Road Haulage Association in the south.
Okay, Chair, thank you.
Okay, Corbyn.
Thank you very much, Chair. And there's been much discussion about this between ministers across the water and here and down south. This really is a European piece of European legislation being applied nationally in the UK and being applied locally as secondary legislation. And there's nothing we can do about that chain of events, as it were. The only way I can see that we can assist hauliers from the south, or from Donegal in particular, is by expanding or extending the number of exemptions, road exemptions. Now, that doesn't seem to me to be possible for ourselves as a local department of government. That would have to be approved at Westminster. So the trick is, how do we get more exemptions for hauliers coming from Donegal, I assume, crossing into Northern Ireland, and then really going southwards, because that's where the problem arises, as I see it. That although they're coming into Northern Ireland, they're not necessarily stopping off here. They're using the roads and going, and that's where the problem really arises. Is there any way that we can further influence Westminster in order to get greater exemptions in terms of roadways?
Well, certainly from a departmental official point of view, Alban, I don't think really there's anything that we can do. There has been huge political debate about it, as you say, between both Alex Atwood when he was Minister and our current Minister, with GB ministers, and trying to persuade them to look sympathetically at the exemptions. And Leo Varadkar, I know, looking back, I was involved as far back as 2012, has been making representations to various DFT ministers as they have changed office. And as it would happen, he's there today talking to Minister Hammond about this is one of the issues he's discussing with him. So, we will obviously, as officials, do what we're tasked to do by our political masters, but there's nothing that I can say that we can do other than present what is required to give full effect to the levy in Northern Ireland, and that would be the making of the subordinate legislation that's required. I mean, obviously, after the committee meeting, what we would have proposed doing, and still propose, I suppose, is to send the SL1s to the committee for consideration, and obviously we would then await the outcome of your deliberations.
Can I ask one further question, Chair, with your indulgence? The levy, as I understand it, could be up to £1,000.
Correct, yeah.
Presumably that's for the full 12 months. Yeah. But if I'm a haulier coming from the south, coming into Northern Ireland, using the roads here, what proportion of the levy do I pay? I mean, say it's £1,000
Sure.
Per annum.
Yeah.
It would seem to me to be very disproportionate if I had to pay £1,000 just for one journey.
Well,
can you explain that to me?
Well, you can pay, you know, for lesser journeys. I mean, you could pay on a daily basis.
Oh,
I mean,
right, yes.
There may be hauliers who very infrequently come across the border, in which case they would only pay for that particular day in question. But obviously, if you're a regular visitor, then obviously you would have, it would be economic, because it is actually works out cheaper if you pay the £1,000 overall. There is a degree of discount applicable, and obviously that levy covers you for onward journeys. Should you then decide as part of to go across to Scotland or to Wales or whatever, you know, you've paid your levy.
Yeah. We should think of it like golf club fees. Think of it like golf club fees.
I don't know if your colleague wanted to quote something there. I'm not sure.
No, just in terms of the rates of the bands, the operator payment system, the Northgate who have developed that have tried to make it as intuitive as possible. So if you're coming in for a period of maybe say 6 weeks, you pump in the dates that you're going to be here, and then it work out the most economically advantageous, price for you. So it maybe charge you a monthly rate and 2 weekly rates, so you always get the best deal. But as Alex has said, if you buy an annual levy, there's obviously economies of scale. Logistically, from an operations perspective, you will make that call at the start of the year if you know you're going to be using UK roads on a daily or a very regular basis. The annual levy is clearly the way to go.
Yep. Thank you very much, Chair.
Ian, do you want to come on to this? Yeah.
Alvin said there, that it's an EU directive. But it's only a directive then, so therefore it can be got around. And I'm asking, has any other member states within the EU are they all doing similar stuff, or are there countries that are dealing with it, in a different way?
I wouldn't, Ian, have exact information to answer that. But what I can say is that quite a few other EU countries have a levy or a toll system in operation within those countries. And as I said, the commitment was given by the coalition government when it came to power that it would introduce a similar structure within the UK, and that's sort of based on a lot of comments over the years from the UK haulage industry, who felt aggrieved that once they went on to mainland Europe, they were being charged, whereas the hauliers from those countries were coming into the UK and using the roads for free. Effectively, that was what was happening.
Yeah.
And that may not be appropriate to ask you, but has the minister or the previous minister there brought this to the executive yet?
It hasn't been brought to the executive. Really, it's back to, I suppose, the constitutional point. It's an accepted matter, so therefore there would be no locus locally within the Assembly or the executive to rule on this. It's a taxation which the UK government control.
Okay, our Chair, thank you.
What would be interesting to see about other examples, because it must be other member states with long borders. Do they have exceptions?
They can absorb it.
There must be people can weave in and out.
Yeah.
So, I just wonder if there are examples in other jurisdictions, other member states.
I think, as Alex has said, the Eurovignette Directive, which governs the framework of rules for tolls across Europe, will be applied by different member states in different ways. So they may put tolls on strategic corridors, but not necessarily affecting the whole member state, as it is the case. But as the letter to the chairperson has indicated, that it does comply with the rules in terms of the Eurovignette in this regard and its application in UK.
Yes, yeah. You made it very clear. We have to do it.
Because Europe.
Yes. So, sorry.
If only with somewhere in Europe changing that for us.
Lot Morrow.
Well, we send the chair to Europe and she'll change it. Chair, thank you. Most of the issues that I was going to talk about have been covered in some way, and I'm just hearing good arguments now why maybe we shouldn't be in Europe or part of it. But anyway, we'll reserve those till March or April or May and tell the people all about it. In this document that I'm reading here, it seems quite startling. It says, to put the cost of levy in context, the typical annual cost of operating a 40-tonne articulated vehicle is £110,000 per year. That sounds a lot of money, but maybe it's not a lot of money, is it?
Certainly, I mean, the figures came from the Department for Transport. I think fuel costs is obviously a big element of that. A big 40-tonne truck would do somewhere in the region of 7 to 8 miles per gallon.
Yeah.
So when you add the cost of fuel up over a period of doing many, many miles, that has a big proportion of it. And then obviously buying the vehicles and such like. So, yes, I mean, I have heard a figure of that reported by the Road Haulage Association and the Freight Transport Association at various meetings.
And in the same paragraph, Chair, it goes on to say that the Conservative assumption that transport costs represent 10% of the price of goods. Impact on prices will be less than 0.1% rise, even if all goods in Northern Ireland were transported on Republic of Ireland HGV. That seems to nearly contradict that again, but I haven't got the minutiae of the figures. I'm just looking at what's hitting me here in the face. Should we not be alarmed about that?
I was going to say this probably sounds like a playing past the parcel, but we actually got the letter at the same time as the committee did, and it's based on the thinking of the Department for Transport. We haven't been privy to the machinations have been done behind that to come up with these figures. So, in all fairness, we're viewing it the same way as you are, Lord Morrow. As it's a statement of fact. It's certainly been presented as such, anyway.
And the other point, Chair, that I'd like to just make anyway is in relation to the south of Ireland, Republic of Ireland, whatever you want to call it. And comparison to here in Northern Ireland, there does seem to be a big difference again. I think, what are we talking about? I can't see it here now at the moment, but yeah, I think we're talking about what in Southern Ireland we're talking about £3,300, and here we're talking about £850. Now, is there going to be? But it says here that the levy payable for this vehicle will be £1,000 in both cases. The comparison that you're taking.
I think in the terms of the domestic operator, the UK operator, as Alex has already said, the vehicle excise duty will be reduced by the corresponding amount of the levy. So it will be nugatory in terms of the impact on the domestic operator. And from my reading of the letter from DFT, they're suggesting that obviously the VED rate in the Republic of Ireland is considerably higher than that in the rest of the UK. So if they wanted to apply the same provision in the Republic of Ireland as has been done in the UK, they would have to reduce the VED rate by a corresponding amount to match whatever levy they could come up with.
And yeah, the vehicle excise duty, Lord Morrow, obviously is devolved to the extent that the government can set that at whatever rate it so chooses. I think, as Jeremy said, in the Republic they have decided to set it at that particular level.
And is there a bit of comfort then at the end of this where we go into the fuel costs, whereby, according to the 2014 AA survey, diesel, excluding VAT in Northern Ireland, is about 16% more than in the Republic of Ireland. where it's 115 pence per litre compared to 99 pence per litre. Is that figure calculated into all of this?
I don't think it was taken into consideration in setting the levy charges, if you like. If we stick with the 1,000, the maximum charge. In truth, as I say, the calculations were something that were presented to us as well. But I would suspect that wouldn't have been a huge consideration when they actually looked at what to charge in terms of what the levy cost should be.
And Alice, could you just tell us, it was in response to Alderman McGuinness's question. You talked then about this could be paid on a daily basis.
Yeah.
How would that work?
You could basically go online. You could pick up a phone, a bit like, and also the way the levies are actually, or the tolls are worked in the Republic of Ireland at the moment. You could stop at one of those petrol stations that you hit before you come to the toll, and simply go in and pay for whatever your daily rate would be, or whatever period you want, and go about your business.
Yeah. And then, or you pay online afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, your number plate has been recorded.
Well, yeah.
The registration number has been recorded by them. Yeah.
Chair, and just finally, I think then, I suppose at the end of the day, this is a debate for Westminster, and I've no doubt that Barry Michael Duff's MPs are over there doing that on a daily basis. And since since it looks like a yes, I feel you coming.
Are you keeping more?
I feel that's where the real debate on this issue is, either in the Dáil or in Westminster, and no doubt you'll notice that bit. But that's by the way. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. But I mean, what it means is really in Northern Ireland, our own hauliers are not going to be affected. But we're looking for exemptions for those roads that the hauliers from the Republic of Ireland, when if they're going
for an entire regional exemption. Some of us are looking for an entire regional exemption. And I just wonder if there was a tit-for-tat measure, if the South, as Ian said, started to introduce a tax for lorries going south. It will affect.
Yeah.
It will affect in many ways.
But they pay tolls anyway.
Yeah, but that's all will affect. Just because I want to go back in is, but if you're indulgent, Chair, there's a few points I want to raise there earlier on. I mean, certainly there's tolls in the south, but I mean, you can pay to use whatever the roads. There's a load of other roads you can avoid if you want to go further south. That's up to yourself. But the reality is this here. After hearing some of the things in relation to enforcement and in relation to PSNA, knowing the number of crossings that there is, I mean, I don't think there has been much thought put into how they're actually going to deal with this. We expect people just to pull into a filling station either side of the partition line to pay the fee one way or another. I mean, there certainly hasn't been much thought in relation to that, and people are missing out on this main issue. There's established business practices both south and north, and has been established for long many a day. And those are the people who are coming to us with serious concerns. And I'm sure there's an impact in terms of ports, because I'm sure people who would normally travel across from, say, Donegal, part of the west, right through and take the port of Belfast, they may be thinking now, although the charges will impact going anyway, from Dublin across anyway, but there has, and I think there is serious implications for trade, because I take it at the heel of all of this here is that they're talking about road infrastructure maintenance in all of this here, and paying for part of that. Yeah. And we have to imagine whether or not the actual budgets to actually implement all of this and gather the fees and fines and everything else, when you take all that out of it, that the fees that people are going to pay in economically will actually outweigh all of that, or play a part in actually road infrastructure maintenance. It's just that argument hasn't been taken into consideration, because I'd say that's what it's all about. And there's I can't see the economic argument in relation to that. And no harm. I mean, it's grand those people who are travelling across to England and further afield into Europe. Some of the big hauliers will be able to make profits out of that. I don't see it for a single operator travelling south to north. So certainly, Chair, we've tried to make strong arguments. It doesn't make much sense in terms of single officers.
Just to exempt the whole region, I don't know how.
That's-
How you can bring that about.
We can't.
You can't. Yeah. I mean, the FP is going to.
Exemptions.
Yeah.
Exemptions start. Clearly, some members of the committee obviously not aware of the number of crossings that there is and how the enforcement is going to.
Larry, you want to come back?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Just very quickly.
No, Chair, can I just say,
Just-
I want to say that we should try to take party politics out of this. This is genuinely about hauliers. This is genuinely about the economy. And from the meeting I attended at the weekend, I do detect major scope for problems here. Major scope for problems. The whole thing could come to a standstill. Lorry drivers going north-south and south-north. We could be on the cusp of a major crisis here.
And can they lobby?
That's what I believe.
Can they lobby the
How did I?
Yeah. And Chair, a retrograde step again back to putting between enforcement and PSNA trying to carry out these duties.
And
I think
the
it's a retrograde
hauliers
step.
in the Republic, have they lobbied their own government,
Where are they?
like reducing levy, that they have to pay, going to Northern Ireland or the UK to help them that
Yeah.
way,
Obviously,
in
they're in
reducing.
talks through their representative organisation, etc. I think Leo Varadkar is meeting
Today.
Stephen Hammond today.
Today.
Isn't that right? Now, I think the letter sent by the Undersecretary. The Undersecretary in question is goodwill. Well, he is far from demonstrating goodwill. He must be the one who's working alongside Stephen Hammond. But there will be a lot of political lobbying about this. But I reasonably expect unionist politicians to look at this objectively and in the spirit of North-South cooperation, when it's practical, to support it. I don't think you should get all party political about something that is economic at its heart. Okay. Thanks.
Now, so
And the Irish Republic, where it complements each other, shouldn't we be doing it? He makes the point very well. That's the reason why our MPs in Westminster should be overdoing their job. But anyway.
let's move on.
We haven't been very effective.
We appreciate
Your
your
team
support
hasn't
in this
been very
matter.
effective so
But I
far.
mean, there's an equality issue here, which is quite. If there's anything clear in this document, Chair, there is an issue around equality, why it can't be done. Now, and we can fly in the face of that if we want, or we can do what you're doing in relation to the social security and all of that, which has taken us nowhere.
But the small
Okay,
number of
well,
Northern
I think
MPs
we're
in Westminster
moving
have no
away
effect.
from-
They're having no effect.
okay,
over there and
Barry.
start to be
Lon
effective.
Morrow.
Eight
Sorry,
round two.
we're just having,
Just-
we're moving
Chair,
away from
could you ask
the
this
issue
question,
now at all.
Chair, could you ask
Yeah.
why a legislative consent motion wasn't brought to here in relation to this matter, please? Because
No,
after all,
you're bringing
at the heart of all this, you will find that there is actually a European directive of some matter, and it's up to the member state to derogate it in a certain way and handle it.
Absorb it.
I'd say that's the way it is.
Yeah. Okay, well, so I need to ask members then, are you content for the department to proceed to draft the subordinate legislation? Yes.
Has that been put to us?
So do we need to put it to a vote then? Yeah. Members, so we'll put this to a vote
Chair,
then.
can I get checked? Was this always going to come to us in this form? I think it was Cathal Boylan who requested that the officials come before the committee. But if Cathal hadn't made that request, how was this going to be presented to us?
Will be just at the normal way.
Tabled
the
item and all of that? Is
Yeah.
it tabled item?
The SL1,
Yeah.
the department will plan to bring the
Yeah.
SL1
Yeah.
again. This is just a
Yeah.
policy briefing.
Yeah.
Okay, but then
Yes,
why are we voting on
ahead of
something now?
SL.
Why are we voting on something now whenever the SL1 hasn't been presented to us?
Well, we still need to ask whether we agree for them to go ahead to draft the SL1. So this is ahead of,
Okay.
us
We're not
approving
voting
or
on the SL1, we're
disapproving
voting-
the SL1.
I have an opportunity to have on the SL1 or whatever to do it.
Okay, sorry, we've been told the SL1 is coming next week.
Okay, so is it appropriate for us to vote on anything now?
We don't have to. Okay, we'll do. Yeah,
But
we
just
could
on
do
the
that.
record, we will be opposing the introduction of the SL1 in this matter. How you keeping lads and girls? Keep her lit over there.
Okay, members, then, thank you for the briefing. So we'll be seeing the SR1 next week. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, members, next item, correspondence. There's a cover note there with suggested actions at page 116. We have a letter at page 118 I want to bring to your attention, and that's a letter from the Ulster Farmers Union regarding illegal tyre disposal in rural areas. As members, you all recall that we produced the disposal of illegal tyre inquiry. So, members, would you be content for us to send this to the department, and maybe we should maybe just do a follow-up about recommendations we made to the department on the inquiry, just maybe check on progress?
I think it'd be useful, Chair. I mean, I think if we're sending this on, and then whether either separately or as part of the letter, indicate it'd be helpful if the department was to update us on what progress they're making in terms of the issue.
So when we're sending this, we ask, for an update.
And
Okay,
just as we've
members?
included in the one letter, we can be environmentally friendly.
You're getting very good, Peter.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's a facade.
Sure. Okay. So next one is a copy of London School of Economics report, Gone with the Wind, valuing the local impacts of wind turbines through house prices. I think probably members can recall we've heard previously from some research about there is no evidence that house prices drop when there are wind turbines built around them, but this is actually contrary to that finding, or to that belief. So, members, are you content if we include the paper in our report, or in our inquiry report? Okay. This is Barry. I don't know whether you heard. Previously had heard evidence that there's no substance to house prices dropping because of wind turbine around them. But this is actually contrary to that belief or evidence. So, okay.
Well, I suppose, Chair, without taking a particular view on everything, you might have a situation where a phenomenon happens on house price implications, maybe in England, which wouldn't necessarily happen here, or vice versa. So there may be a limited amount to be drawn necessarily on that basis.
Suppose so. Yeah. But I just think it's difficult to say that that is never going to affect a house, house prices. If you see wind turbines behind, from your window, or at your, just from your backyard. Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll put that report. Sorry, what was he saying?
Disagree with you?
Disagree with me? Yes.
I near lost the one.
I think the honeymoon period.
Well, the good way's gone now. Okay, right, we should swiftly move on then. Okay, so we'll put it in our report. Next item is memo from the Ad Committee seeking our thoughts or policy implications of the Reservoir Bill, and it's at page 179. Members, are you content if we forward the correspondence to the department for their comments before we respond to the committee? Okay. Then next is page 180, correspondence from the chairman of West Tyrone against wind turbines regarding the Aarhus Convention ruling. So a new ruling has come forward, has been published in relation to wind turbine.
Chair, maybe perhaps through you or the clerk, what is the import of that? Is that very significant? The chair of the committee in West Tyrone against wind turbines, is suggesting that this is of major import, and that we're all missing something if we don't absorb the point that's being made about the illegal nature of many wind farms. Is he right or is he wrong? What is European? He's been
corresponding with us on a regular basis.
I understand. Is that singularly significant, or is it not? I would just ask for your opinion, you know.
I think that's why we need to take the views of the department to get the other side of it.
Chair, I'm not so sure it's fair to ask for your opinion of the legalities of it, but it might be useful because it does raise a very important legal issue in respect of EU law. So it might be useful, as well as I'm happy to send on to the department for their review, but it might be useful for us to get a legal assessment from the Assembly legal team, just on the point of it as well, for their assessment, just to see what the import or impact of it is.
The Aarhus Convention is generally very well respected and recognised in the environmental world. So I think none of us really are experts in this field. So I think maybe best to send it to the department, to NIEA, and for their comment on this.
But I think, Chair, we do need a legal assessment. That's, I think, if I'm right in thinking what Barry said, and I would agree, we need a legal assessment of it, just in regards to the EU decision.
Okay.
The EU court decision.
Well, we'll send it to our legal service just for the comment as well.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Not Morrow, you want to come in?
Well, it's just, I'm not saying contrary to what anything has been said, but just to give it a proper regard, I think the inference is that due to a new directive or a new announcement from Europe yesterday or the day before, that it would seem to imply that there are proper planning permission has not been obtained. Now, surely the department can confirm that very quickly, so they can, and does it comply with EU standards and regulations? Now, I don't know whether this can then go in retrospect or not. That's the aspect of it I'm not quite sure, because if Europe makes a directive yesterday and it arrives here, what is the effective date of that directive? Is it from the date it was done, or is it in retrospect? And I think those are the issues that we'd like to see teased out.
Chair, can I say I wholeheartedly agree with Maurice Morrow?
I'm very glad to hear that, Barry.
Very supportive.
At last, you two agree. You two agree on something. Okay, quickly moving on then. So we're sending that to the department and also our legal service for guidance. Okay, members. Then the next one, email regarding the wind turbine. Good practice guide at page 194, and we're sending that to the department for the comment. Okay, members. So we'll be talking about wind turbine now from March on, members. Yep. So the others are all for members to note. Okay, members content. Next item is forward work programme at page 247. There we have just a table paper for members, just the agenda from about the NELGA conference. We're going there in the afternoon, we're not going for the full day. Can members please indicate as soon as possible if they are coming to the conference?
Sure, I can be there in the morning.
No, it's in the afternoon. We're going about lunchtime.
Next Thursday.
No, I understand that. Le Mans, I could be there for, well, I appreciate the bits in the committee stuffs in the afternoon. I may have difficulties in the afternoon, to be honest. I'll see if I can get across for a while for them. I know they're not doing business in the afternoon.
Well, the Secretariat will send round the email and just members can maybe confirm, check the diary and confirm. Okay? Then next, it will be nothing date, time, place of next meeting, same time, next Thursday in the Senate chamber, 10 o'clock. Okay, thank you, members. And thank you very much for your comments earlier on. Sorry.
I nearly missed you there. In light of the Spotlight programme that was on, I think, last night, could maybe we get an update as to the illegal dumping at Moboy? And I know the committee has spoke on it in the past and have had some kind of update, but there's revelations last night there, and it's a very extensive problem.
Right, I must watch it again. Watch it, and on iPlayer I wasn't able to watch it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, members, we certainly come back to that. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Okay, members, thank you very much. And thank you very much for your support. Really appreciate it.
Lord Barrow, thank you very much for your support.